I had been doing tech support for Hewlett-Packard's DeskJet division for about a month, and I had a customer call in with a problem I just could not solve. She could not print yellow on her printer. All the other colors would print fine, which truly baffled me because the only true colors are cayenne, magenta, and yellow. For instance, green is a combination of cayenne and yellow, but green printed fine. Every color in the rainbow printed fine except yellow. I had the customer change the ink cartridges several times. I had the customer delete and reinstall the drivers several times. Nothing worked. I asked my coworkers for help, and none of them could even come up with anything. After over 2 hours of troubleshooting, I was about to tell the customer to send the printer in to us for repair when she asked very quietly, "Should I try printing on a piece of white paper instead of yellow?" True story from Hewlett-Packard's website. Well, do you remember back to your childhood? I want to take some of you, in fact, this probably could relate to all of us, but for those of us who are in our older years, remember back to your days in elementary school. And in comes your teacher, and she has this secret box that she sets up on her desk. And she says, "Who would like to have the first thing out of this box?" And what happens to everybody? Me, 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 I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. Everybody wants to be first, don't they? Well, now that you have that painted in your head, I want you to imagine coming home, and you walk in the door, or your dad's walking in from work, and here he sees all the kids sitting on the sofa, playing their Wii or their Nintendo, or they're up doing whatever. And Dad says, "Who wants to be first to go clean out the litter box?" Or who wants to go out and take the trash? Anybody? No takers, huh? In fact, you almost have to pay a kid anymore to go do those chores, don't you? But I didn't see anybody jumping up and down like they did for their teacher. "Oh, me, I want to be first. Let me be first." You know, if you picked up today, there were 2 themes from our gospel text. One is about putting God first, which is the one thing I want to focus on today. The other was not worrying, but if you remembered, I preached on that about 6 weeks ago, about not worrying. God will take care of the needs that we have. Have you ever had that happen in your life? Something's just going along and you can't figure out how just everything just sits right into motion. Everything just plays out absolutely perfect. No itch. Is that God? Is that God taking care of you? Is that God providing for every need that you have? I think so. But I want to talk about letting God be first in our lives. You know, as Christians, I think sometimes, and I'm just as guilty, that I slack on this every once in a while. That I don't let God be first in everything that I do. And in fact, I kind of go along in life and, hey, everything's just kind of sliding by perfectly. What do I need to think about God for this? It's only a piece of paper that I'm putting in the printer. But I have to think, how can God be first? I should be thanking Him that I have the resources to have that piece of white paper to put into a printer that I know works and will print out things that I need for the church, etc., etc. And I had to think about it from the simplest of terms. I need to put God first for everything I do in life. But you know, I think a lot of times society pushes God to be second, third, fourth, even fifth place. Don't we? And I think we're all guilty of it. But I think it brings us back to the reality that we have to let God be first. And I want to go back to Webster's Dictionary and get your Bibles ready because we're going to go to about 5 places today. Webster's Dictionary, in the terms that we say, let God be first. We already knew who God is, but let's see what Webster's has to say about the word let. It's defined as to allow, to permit, to acknowledge. The B definition to exist, be present, to be real. And to say the word first, to be head of, the original, to be before all, the beginning in preference to something else. So, if we put that together, to allow, to permit, or to acknowledge God, to exist, be present, and to be real, to be the head of, the original, to be before all, the beginning and the preference to something else. That means we need to let God be everything first. I want you to turn to Exodus. We're going to go back. We were there last week in the Old Testament quite a bit. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20. And for many, you'll recognize this as the beginning of the Ten Commandments. Exodus chapter 20. And I want to go to the 4th verse. Actually, I'm sorry, we're going to go to the 3rd verse. Exodus chapter 20, verse 3. Do not worship any other gods besides me. You know, even though God created all things, He's the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, and the end. But God's not going to force you to put Him first. Wow. Have we ever thought about that? God is not going to force you to put Him first. Even though He requires it, even though it's in His commands, you shall put no other gods before me. He's not going to require you to put Him first. And in fact, the responsibility, that capability, comes on us. It's our responsibility. It's our choice in who we put first in our life. Do we put God first in our life? You know, at schools it kind of worries me because they've kicked out prayer. They've kicked out the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, I'm kind of on my political soapbox because I read some stuff this week that really bothered me again. And you've heard me say it's no wonder all this stuff goes on in schools. Have the schools put God first? No. In fact, they just kicked Him out the door. How do you expect protection over a school if you've kicked the very man out that deserves to be first? You know, as a society, our problem is letting everything else come first in our life, isn't it? We get wrapped up, tied up, tangled up in our flesh. Oh yes, that wonderful old flesh that we have on our bodies. And in fact, take yourself and pinch yourself and remind yourself that you have flesh. Because I want to go to Romans. Let's go back to Romans, chapter 7. And kind of keep your finger in that area because that's where we're going to wind up today. Romans chapter 7. And again, your highlighters and your post-it notes are there in the pews. Feel free to mark them up if you need to. Romans chapter 7, we're going to go to the 18th verse. Let's hear what Paul had to say. Romans chapter 7, verse 18. I know I am rotten through and through, so far as my old sinful nature is concerned. No matter which way I turn, I can't make myself do right. I want to, but I can't. You know, has anybody ever heard that your flesh is controlled by your mind? Has anybody ever heard that? Your flesh is controlled by your mind. And as I thought about that, and I pondered it, it is true. Because what my mind thinks is what my flesh winds up desiring. And in fact, my flesh wants more and more and more. And in fact, it almost sometimes gets to the point of being out of control, doesn't it? Does your mind kind of get out of control? Let me relate it this way. It's like me walking into a Dick's store, walking over to the golf section, and I see all these new tailor-made clothes. And then I see these Callaway clothes. And then I was all excited in the heyday of a certain golfer, but his heyday is long gone, so I don't like Nike anymore. But now I go back to those Callaways, and I get so consumed, and then they put up their free financing for 18 months. And I go, well, I can afford that. I can take care of those payments for 18 months, and I'll have no interest at the end. It's my flesh that wants those. The golf clubs I have are perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But my flesh says, but look at these sparkling new ones when you and Harley head out to the golf course this summer. Isn't that true, David? I told Harley he has to get himself a heck of a lot better because we have to go golf. And if there's any other golfers in this congregation, we're going. My clubs are all ready to go. Or they will be this afternoon. I got to go wax and polish. And, I got a nice day off today. So, but my flesh takes over. My desire for that something takes over. Because my mind says so. It's my mind's fault that even took me over there in the first place. Well, it was kind of the newspapers I was floating through and I saw the advertisements. But there's my mind again. I'm allowing outside influences to influence this thing. It's not a very big head. Well, what's in it? It's pretty big on the outside. But guess what? Our mind speaks to our flesh. And that flesh never becomes satisfied. In fact, I was reading on the net this week stories of millionaires. People who won $1 million. And in fact, they said as soon as they won $1 million, their drive to get another $1 million was even that more stronger. And they said, we got another $1 million, and we weren't satisfied with that. We needed another $1 million. And then we went and built this house. And after building the house, it wasn't big enough, so we went and built another one. And it just keeps tumbling and tumbling and tumbling to the point that we get out of control. But our key issue comes back to this. Did we put God first? It's not wrong to win $1 million. But guess what? What are we going to do with it first? We need to put God first in everything we do. How many people go to work in the morning and put God first? I need to put that over our door at home. As I leave the house and head towards work, put God first as a great reminder. And then I need to put it on my desk at my office and say, put God first. As a reminder to me that everything that I do, and as I'm going up, I listen to NPR. I leave the house at 5:30 in the morning typically. I'm listening to NPR. And when I get to about 71 in Snow Road, I usually have a little bit of prayer time before I can get into the NASA Center. And to me, that's putting God first to my day.